he actually is and what that relationship is. So I think it's interesting in this passage that he says, "I and the Father are one." Right? We're starting to construct this idea of the Trinity, of the joint nature of Jesus and God the Father, while still keeping them kind of distinct as well. Okay. Another thing that's a little bit more indirect is when Jesus prays, right? He says, "Abba," right? "Abba, Father." This is a very intimate relationship. Most of the Jews would have never thought of calling. They would have called God Yahweh. They wouldn't even come close to the level of intimacy here that we see with Jesus, right? So it's clear that he, right, as we look at his identity, who he believes himself to be, he believes himself to be the Son of God here, and to have that very personal relationship with the Father. Now, are there anywhere else where he told other people to use that term, Abba? I think of any other times he's told his apostles maybe. Maybe a certain prayer. Right? No. Father who art in heaven, right? That use of Father again is Abba, right? This very interpersonal relationship.
Can I say something about Abba?
Yeah, go for it.
So what's really interesting about it, like you said, is that endearment term. So, but it's not just Father, because Father is Av, the AB. When you add the VA to the end of it in the original text, it adds that even more, like what a little child would call, like daddy or something similar to that.
It's all like Father, dearest.
Dearest, Father, stuff like that. And so it adds even beyond just a, hey, dad or something like that. It's that like super endearment, like little child calling out. Because even to this day, in many of the Middle Eastern countries, children still call, like little children still call their dads.
Can everybody hear that? Okay, cool. So, in the Lord's Prayer, he teaches the apostles to pray this way, right? And that's also kind of revolutionary, right? Because he's telling other Jews to talk to God in the same way. So, like, they would never have considered doing this in the past. But I think what's interesting here is that the only way that you can have that is through Jesus, right? The only way you have that intimate relationship is through prayer, which is through Jesus, which I think is really interesting. Okay, so we also know that he called himself and believed himself to be the Son of God through context clues, right? In several instances when when he's going to the cross, right? The rationale that the Jews use, they use in Matthew 27 verse 43. It says, "He said, I'm the Son of God," right? It doesn't have red letters, but even though they had not necessarily the best motives, we have no reason to believe that the Jews would just like lie about who he said he was. I think it's clear that Jesus, would have told someone he's the Son of God. And then in John 5, right, he's already started this idea of calling God his own Father, right? Again, using that term Abba, which is more endearing than what they would have been used to. And then lastly, since I'm still turned here in John, I'll just read John 19:19. So this is, of course, he's on the cross. It says, "Pilate also wrote an inscription and put it on the cross. It read, 'Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews.' Many of the Jews read the inscription, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Aramaic, in Latin, and in Greek." They want to make sure everybody knew. Everybody could read it. So the chief priest of the Jews said to Pilate, No, do not write the King of the Jews, but rather, 'This man said, I am the King of the Jews.'" Right? Which is probably a little bit, off from